let's start off with a little segment devoted to trailers. Um, because sometimes you walk into the movie theater and the trailers are playing. And I feel like I typically take the Roman Emperor Commodus route from Gladiator when it comes to trailers. I usually want to give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down as to whether or not I'd even consider seeing it. And I was going to say post COVID, but I'd really say within the last like maybe 6-7 years, I feel like I've been not too impressed with a lot of the trailers that have been coming out, but maybe I've just not been going to the theaters very much. All right, well, let's just start with the first one I walked in on midway through, so I guess I only got part of that, but it's a movie called Saturday Night, which honestly just looked like kind of a weird, wacky period piece set in the 70s. I couldn't really quite figure out what it was, and I kept getting the very like kind of this is like an important time in history vibes that often come through when the movie has to kind of almost tell you that as opposed to like focusing on the event. And it ended with a guy petting a llama, which I guess was supposed to be funny. I don't know. People laughed. I wasn't particularly interested. So I looked it up afterwards, and it's a movie by Jason Reitman. It's called Saturday Night. It's about the beginnings of Saturday Night Live, which could be interesting, I'll admit. I mean, there's a lot of cool drama and history surrounding that topic, so I don't know. I guess you could make a movie out of that. Something tells me Jason Reitman probably isn't going to give us like a banger of a... I don't know. I feel like Jason Reitman for me sometimes falls into the Damien Chazelle model of like it just comes out sort of vanilla, like maybe Vanilla Bean, and that you get a little bit of something weird in there, but like it's just not particularly great. And I think that's been sort of his brand the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. Like the last movie, he had some success early on with like some indie kind of stuff, and then he moved on to a movie called Labor Day, which sounds about as, or was about as exciting as it sounds. And then he kind of came back and took up his father's mantle by directing the Ghostbusters sequel. And I don't know. I mean, the Ghostbusters sequel, all I've heard is, yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's basically just playing on the harp that was originally built. But we shall see. I don't have anything against Jason Reitman. I think I've enjoyed his stuff, so hopefully he succeeds. But honestly, Saturday Night Live, it sucks. I mean, it was funny, but it's had such a dodgy history over the years. I guess we'll see if this is even interesting subject matter. The next one was for a movie called Wild Robot. By the way, if you want to skip these, you can just skippity-doo down the line. I'm just giving my honest opinion about all these important movies. Wild Robot is from DreamWorks. It seems like they basically wanted to do their version of WALL-E, which, and this is unpopular opinion coming in hot. I was not the biggest fan of WALL-E. I never wanted to rewatch that movie. The only time I ever did rewatch it was because a girl that I had a crush on in college wanted to watch it, and I was like, okay, let's do this as a group, and I'll suffer through it again. Just never really fell for the cute robot shtick. And I'm not denying that it might have a good story. I just have never gone back to re-examine it. So take of that what you will. I feel like this Wild Robot movie, I think it's about from what I could surmise, it's about a robot that basically ends up in the wild. I'd go figure. And it seems like it's almost like about a robot becoming more human the more detached from society and technology that it gets, which is ironic because it's a robot. It like seems to bond with all these natural creatures and nature. I don't know. I personally am not the biggest fan of it. I feel like with AI and everything scaring the hell out of me every day, I'm not too ready to jump on the sympathetic robot train these days. I mean, I understand we've been here. Like, this is like been like a plot line in so many sci-fi movies before, where it's like, oh, well, when does the robot become human? But now I'm like, I especially when kids, like this movie is clearly for kids. I'm kind of like, okay, I guess like these things are probably going to be our caretakers like 30 years from now. So that's depressing to think about. And I don't know, like, don't I want my kids to be a little bit wary of this kind of technology? But that's me just thinking way too hard. Honestly, the movie looks like it could be good. Looks like objectively the story might be cool and interesting. Like I said, it's a little bit of a rehash of what I feel like WALL-E was, or at least that's what I got from the trailer. What else? There's something else about that I was going to point out. Oh, it's made by, it's made by DreamWorks, they did name Puss in Boots: The Last Wish in the trailer as like a kind of one of those little like standards to be like, oh, this is from the studio that brought you this. And I mean, to be fair, that was an amazing movie. It was probably the best story I saw in like the last 4 or 5 years, which maybe just means I haven't been seeing that many movies, but that movie was, we're in a drought. We're in a drought, people. Okay, the next one was Never Let Go with Halle Berry. And it looked like immediately when I saw the opening of this trailer, I was like, oh, this looks like Bird Box / A Quiet Place. And sure enough, that's pretty much kind of the thing that's going off of. Basically about like two boys who live with their mother in the cabin in the woods after the end of the world, and they have to tether themselves to the cabin anytime they go out. And if they don't, bad things will happen by mysterious creatures. And it was around this time that I actually was kind of curious as to like who they thought the audience for Beetlejuice was going to be, because there were like a bunch of children in the theater. And I was like, okay, yeah, the previous trailer for Wild Robot, that was clearly for children, but this does not seem like it's for children. This seems pretty scary. But I don't know. Anyways, wasn't interested in that. Thumbs down. Just looks like more of the same. Maybe people find it interesting. I don't know. Halle Berry's fine. Wicked. Oh boy. This is something that I almost ruined maybe the good impression that I had set with my wife's friends at one point, because they asked me if I had ever seen Wicked or if I had ever listened to it and if I was going to see the movie. And I almost did that like Tismy thing where all of a sudden I just like was going to start drawing like, I don't know, what's the word? The stupid, Venn diagrams or whatever, like diagrams on like explaining why this is bad and how this is what we're led up to. Because there's always been something intuitive in me whenever I see something like Wicked come along. And I think Wicked kind of maybe started this trend. I'd have to really look at it, the trend itself, to find out. But there's this thing now where like they try to really humanize the villain of these classic tales. It's all about like breaking down evil, and essentially the moral of the story behind the story is always you were told the story wrong. It's, you know what, it's like in law school and in regular school. I remember this book when they brought this book to school. It was the Three Little Pigs, but like reversed, where the wolf was just trying to like, I don't know, like give the pigs gifts and stuff. It was really weird. It was all about like challenging your perspective on things. And I don't know, to me it sounds like, not to get political, but this is sort of where this stems from. It sounds very Marxist. It's like, oh, well, whatever you think, like whatever you think your moral view of the world is, likely it's flipped. Likely, you've got something wrong and there's, and really you're to blame, or the moral good in the world is to blame for the evils that you see. And I'm not saying that the world's black and white, but like with The Wizard of Oz, I find it very, very interesting that that's one that they went with. Like, it's sort of like Maleficent, when Maleficent came out and Angelina Jolie was in it. And it was all about, like, the first villain, Disney villain they chose to humanize is literally the one who in Sleeping Beauty, she calls on all the powers of hell to turn her into a dragon. Like, okay. Sure. And then on top of that, you have Cruella, the woman who wanted to turn puppies into a coat. That was like her one main driving goal. And they had to totally abandon any sort of lore or canon there because ultimately they realized that that's horrible, but they still had to use the character, so they gave her like a whole new thing. It was really weird. It was like she's the one gifting Perdita. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that, but like that was stupid. And then what was the other one? Anyways, Wicked. It's from what I gathered from the trailer, and I've never actually watched the musical. I can just sort of pick up on this stuff. And I remember people were like always into it growing up. And I think it's because it had a very powerful stage presence. I mean, Idina Menzel, or as John Travolta would have us believe, Adam Dazeem, would look that clip up. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty funny. The whole Wicked thing was like Idina Menzel like really showcased her performative skills. Like that's, I think, what made that play probably good. Maybe the plot's like, I don't know. The writing sometimes can be good with this stuff, but it doesn't really kind of take away from the fact that it's very subversive and it's kind of almost like it's super disrespectful to the original content. The Wicked Witch is like, she's a pretty bad person. And we see this with Lord of the Rings of Power. Like, this is just where I'm really starting to have enough of this, like, let's understand the villain. I understand, like, you do need to make your villain understandable to a certain degree in their motivations, but sometimes evil is just in the world, and it's almost hard to understand. And that's one of the mysteries, is that you see a lot of evil in the world where you don't really understand what the motivation could be. All this senseless violence that we keep hearing about. It's like, what's that? Like, the Wicked Witch was doing a lot of senseless violence, I think. And it's because she was just a hateful being. She was bad. She gave herself over to the evil. But we're all supposed to feel bad about it. So let's go see Wicked. Anyways, not a fan. Not going to see it. Sonic 3, I just find that I'm not going to, why get into Sonic? Well, actually, no. Sonic is actually a cultural landmark, because remember when they released that terrible trailer where Sonic was like weirdly anthropomorphic? It was so weird design. It was the weirdest design ever. And people memed it to hell. And that was like one of the big moments of studios actually listening to audiences, when people were basically like, why did you do this? And they went back and they totally redid the design, and arguably it saved that franchise. And I think it's like one of the only video game movies to ever really be that particularly great. I mean, I might be outdated when I say that, but great is, sorry, like, fine. It's like the movie, I remember, I've never seen it, but I heard people say, yeah, it's okay. Like, it's not like a train wreck. It plays it pretty safe. Certainly made James Marsden a lot of money. He didn't have to keep playing the sad sack of the failed fiance, or the unsuitable suitor. You know, he was always like the other guy who always got dumped in all the other movies. Coming to a close on the trailers. Lord of the Rings, I got really excited because I thought they were doing a re-release of Lord of the Rings, which they do from time to time, but I thought there was going to be some new kind of reason to go see it in theaters. I don't know. Like, I don't know what that would be. Maybe like upscaling or whatever. Whatever. But they had all this footage from Lord of the Rings on the head end of this trailer, and then all of a sudden it turned into animation, and it was Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, which sounded really cool. And then it turned into like Brave meets The Lion King 2, which is like female power fantasy about girl who doesn't want to get married and wants to fight like a man. And it was just like, there's like so much against this, not only from Tolkien, like, and also it's just such a tired narrative at this point. Like the girl boss thing, I'm sure they put a lot of work into this, but they chose the wrong trend to follow, in my opinion. Now, I might eat my words, maybe it's not bad, but I do think that it comes off like a political statement when, like, if you watch Return of the King, Éowyn wanting to fight, it's not about challenging gender, whatever. It's about her desire to do something, and she has this misplaced desire to be out on the battlefield, and it actually ends up working out. It's like a good example of like Tolkien's kind of, but she doesn't stay there. Like she basically like does her thing and then realizes, oh, I'm not meant for this, and then she goes and marries Faramir. Spoiler alert. But anyways, I like Mulan is another great example of how they did this well. Like it was a great example of like, I can still watch Mulan. I watched it as a kid and I liked it. I actually loved the action. I loved the plot. I loved the villain. I thought Mulan was great. And it was all because it wasn't putting it in your face. It was just like, no, that she's doing this because she has to. She's doing this because this is like this is an exceptional situation. And maybe that'll be the case with War of the Rohirrim. Maybe I'll eat my words. But right now, honestly, I'm looking at it. I'm rolling my eyes and I'm just done with this. Plus the animation style, it's like that. I don't know, is it anime or is it something akin to that? Like, it's just, I kind of wish that they'd come up with something that would maybe seem to fit Middle-earth a little bit better. This just wasn't quite it for me, but then again, I mean, it could be worse. They could have done total 3D animation, which probably, I don't know. They could have done like a Lion King like animated movie, but I thought that would be stupid. But hey, these studios are run by very special people. Let's just put it that way. Okay, to tie this off, I think we're about, oh boy, where are we, like 20 minutes in? Jeez. Well, this is just the first act. Joker 2. I am actually pretty excited about this. I saw the first movie once, and I kind of couldn't quite go back to it because it's so potent. Like it's very like, it's not a happy story. And if you get anything out of it, it's more of like a morality tale, and it's a little bit of a mind bender. And it's almost like a ride that you're not going to necessarily be riding all the time, or you shouldn't be, because like the main character is a very unhealthy character, and the payoff is very good. But sometimes I turned it on again and I tried to watch it, and I wanted to get to the payoff, but it was almost like the journey there was almost too tough for me at the time. So I couldn't finish it. But the movie is very good. The first Joker is very good. I think it asks a lot of really good questions. I think it's a great way of kind of flipping the comic book movie on its head and like doing something that's way more interesting, shrinking the world down and like not feeling like you have to do certain things. I mean, I feel like there were a few weaknesses, but I'll actually end up reviewing Joker 2. So that's a thumbs up. I'm really excited to just see what that whole world is. I was a little upset that I saw this trailer because I was kind of just trying to stick to the teaser. I try to like not see the whole movie in the trailer, but in this case, it looks like it's all sort of running along the same lines. My only worry is that maybe they've expanded it to the point of where it's going to become a little bit more hard to manage. But that just depends on the writing and the filmmakers. So we shall see. That's coming in October. You can probably, if I can make this consistent enough, I may even put that behind the paywall, but we'll see. Not to get cocky. I may have to, get some running speed and get some wind under my wings first. But there's actually a couple good movies coming out in the near future, so we shall see.